Please rise to receive your Chairman, Vice Chairman and Chief Executive.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our last Council of 2025. I'd ask those of you who are willing to remain standing while our chaplain leads us in prayers. Thank you, everybody. Right, so we will crack on with this evening's agenda, starting with declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I will take that as a no. Apologies for absence, Mel.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from councillors Chowdhury, Chiotti, Dorks, Franks, Hartley, R. Morris, Tasker and Turrier.
Thank you. And moving on to minutes of the previous meeting, which I hope you've all had a chance to read, I will propose those as a correct record. Councillor,
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, any comments on that? If not, all those in favour of taking these as a true and accurate record? Any against? No? Good. Okay, Chairman's announcements. Apologies, this is likely to be a fairly lengthy Chairman's announcement. In fact, I may actually truncate it slightly if you give me a minute. But first of all, I want to give you an update from Richard. Richard has sent me a message before this evening, and he's asked me to read this out in Chairman's announcements, and it is also included in the text of the announcements that you've got printed. Richard says, "Unfortunately, I will not be with you this evening, but I am hoping to be able to return to more duties early in the new year. I believe I'm still making steady progress and starting to do more gradually under doctor's instructions. Thank you all for your terrific work for our Wychavon residents over the past year. Team Wychavon, our officers and members have worked hard to support our areas. There is no doubt 2026 will bring more challenges that we will face together. I've learnt how precious life is, and I wish you all the very best this Christmas, and I hope a new year of health and happiness. Live, love, and laugh." Anyway, enough from Richard and me. Mel. This is a special meeting for Mel as well. It's Mel's last council meeting. Mel is retiring. Is it at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a few little special gifts for you here, Mel. Normally, when a staff member retires, we go and do it down there. But since you're already up here, we may as well stay up here. But if you decide to stand up, I've got a few things for you hidden away under here, which I'll try and... Here we go. That is one.
Thank you very much.
And I just dropped something, so I...
Promise not to open it now.
You can promise, you can open it whenever you like. And a card. This is what looks like chocolates. I certainly hope. And thank you. And finally, a bunch of flowers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mel's been here for, I believe, around 20 years, is that correct? Originally joining us from Stratford Council, so you've had a good time here, I hope. I hope you've had a good time here. Mel predates, I think, most of us in this room. I don't know if there's anybody around who was here before Mel, but so we move on, and hopefully your successor in that chair will do as good a job as you've done. Anyway, moving on to the rest of my announcements. As this is the last full council of the year, there are seasonal refreshments in the committee room afterwards. I hope you will be able to stay and join me. Otherwise, I will be taking a very large doggy bag home. And I am pleased to see that many of you have made the effort with Christmas ties and Christmas jumpers. Dan even seems to have dressed down for the occasion to put on a Christmas jumper. But anyway, it's been a busy couple of months since the last full council in October. I'm not going to read out the complete list of my civic engagements because that would take me even longer. But one thing that has struck me repeatedly is the breadth and depth of talent and commitment that we have in our community. I've presented another set of Wychavon Community Star Awards over the past couple of months to recipients for their work in the local community, including looking after swans on the River Avon, litter picking in Droitwich, running a baby bank in Wychbold. It says Ombersley on your piece of paper. That was a typo on my part. It is Wychbold, and I've been corrected on that. Volunteering at a community hub in Norton Barracks, running youth activities in Offanem, coordinating community activities on Westlands Estate in Droitwich, and looking after the Avon Meadows in Pershore. And I've been privileged to meet with other local volunteers, including a group who teach adults to read, Evesham Street pastors, and our own Wychavon Wellbeing volunteers. All of them are people who freely give their time without any reward other than the satisfaction of a job well done and the knowledge that they're helping to make the world a better place. And I, for one, am truly grateful for everything all of our local volunteers in the community do. We are well and truly in the lead up to Christmas now, so as you can imagine, I've already been to a fair number of seasonal activities, and the Deputy Chairman has been to several that I couldn't make. And again, I've been hugely impressed by the level of commitment of everyone involved in putting them on, as well as the incredible talent on display. We wouldn't have these events if it wasn't for people going above and beyond their duties and putting their heart and soul into the performance. At Christmas in particular, it's important to remember that we are much more than the sum of our parts. And I really want to put that on record, that I am so very grateful to the people who put their heart and soul into making things good for other people. Okay, right, moving on to the agenda. As is, we have no public participation. We have no petitions from members of the council, I believe. So the next point is notices of motion from members of the council. And we have one notice of motion, which I believe will be proposed by Councillor Nicola Morris.
Thank you, Chair. In 2022, the concept of a hierarchy of road users was introduced to the Highway Code. This concept places those road users most at risk in the event of a collision at the top of the hierarchy. The hierarchy does not remove the need for everyone to behave responsibly. The road users most likely to be injured in the event of a collision are pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders and motorcyclists, with children, older adults and disabled people being more at risk. Despite this change, many of our roads are still unsafe to vulnerable users and a barrier to active travel on the school run, particularly cycling. In England in 2024, for trip lengths 1 to 2 miles, only around 4% were made by cycling, compared to 73% by car for children aged 5 to 10 and 49% by car for those aged 11 to 16. Big Walk and Wheel is the UK's largest inter-school walking, wheeling, scooting and cycling challenge. It inspires pupils to make active journeys, helping pupils arrive alert and ready to learn, while creating a safer and more pleasant environment around school. The 2026 Big Walk and Wheel runs from Monday the 16th of March to Friday the 27th of March. This council supports the concept of a hierarchy of road users, and as part of its active travel policy recognises the need for behaviour change campaigns to encourage people to take up active travel. This council resolves to work with all schools in Wychavon to identify the barriers to signing up to be part of the Big Walk and Wheel 2026, work with all schools in Wychavon to overcome those barriers, encourage and support those Wychavon families who actively take part in the 2026 challenge, and work with Worcestershire Youth Cabinet and, where possible, local youth councils to provide support, guidance and collaboration in the development and delivery of further successful active travel campaigns.
Thank you. And I believe Councillor Homer wishes to second this.
Thank you, Chairman. I wholeheartedly second this motion. I myself live in the centre of Evesham, which is also the ward that I represent, and I recognise every day the numbers of parents that take children to school in the car, not simply because that is a choice out of laziness or apathy or anything like that, but actually because they feel safer doing that and taking their children in cars. So anything we can do to promote active travel, to encourage all road users to be aware of everybody else on the road as well, and we all play a role in that as our individual car users too, I think is a wonderful thing to do. And all we can do to support the Big Walk and Wheel in 2026, I think would be fantastic. So I wholeheartedly support Councillor Morris on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Beverley Hardman, does you wish to respond to this?
Yeah, thank you. Just for those who don't know who the Wheel Walk Cycle Trust, it used to be Sustrans, so if you don't know that, that's who they are now. They've changed their name. This is fantastic. We're already working in schools. We have been running this for the last couple of months. It was initially difficult to get into schools, but we have got into schools and it's going really well. I totally support the fact we need to encourage more people to walk and cycle. That's really what we want to do. We have to try and engage with the schools. We can talk to them, but we can't force them to do anything. We have to ask them and show them how important it is and how much benefit it is for everybody to do these activities. I quite totally agree that we need to promote it more, which we're going to do, hopefully do next year, and we need to have success. I'd also like to throw a challenge that maybe people coming to Wychavon that day also, or that week, try and cycle in as well, so we try and support it. But that would be a challenge for me. I'm not very good in balancing anyhow. But yeah, more we can do, great. I must also thank one of the officers, Joe, who's done a fantastic job of getting the schools involved in this year. And it was new and it has done really well. So I would like, hopefully, to look to do some more. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Leader.
Chairman, thank you. I think this is a very timely motion to come forward, particularly as the other week we had Local Democracy Day, and 2 out of the 4 schools actually presented on a road safety issue. And in fact, Prince Henry's High School in Evesham actually won the Local Democracy Day on their presentation. And we had Highways here, and they took on board what they've said with their presentation, and they're going to take that forward. Also, Pershaw High School, they brought forward, their presentation was around safety, and in particular they were concerned that when they were walking to school that they didn't feel safe, but to actually cycle to school, when I asked them, didn't necessarily come up on their radar, and it was to know whether there was actually the facilities to enable them to cycle so that they would feel that that would be a choice to make. But I think certainly we at Wychavon do a fantastic job by going into schools and communicating with schools, particularly as a result of that at the Local Democracy Day, for them to bring things up, but to bring things up that Highways are going to be taking on board. So very much support this motion, and thank you both for bringing it.
Councillor Stokes.
Yes, thank you. An excellent topic, it really is, and a very vital thing to pursue. As a previous county councillor, I brought a notice of motion regarding bikeability and the importance of supporting bikeability, which to those of us of a certain age and lived through the 1970s used to be called the cycling proficiency test. And bikeability is the new one. I still have my triangle badge. But bikeability is the new one, and I think it needs to be pushed within the schools, because if you feel safe on the roads, then you will use the roads. And it's all about knowing your safety, knowing how to make sure that you are in that hierarchy of the road users, not relying on it, but making sure that you feel safe. And once you feel safe, then you are actually at liberty to enjoy cycling to school, because it is quite liberating being able to cycle in safety. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm more than happy to support this motion, and I'd like to thank both Councillor Morris and Councillor Homer, especially for taking on the last item on the end of the motion, and that was brought up. That's about bringing youth councils into the mix, and local youth groups and the youth cabinet for Worcestershire, because I know that Councillor Richard Morris, who leads the Droitwich Youth Council, had done a lot of work with Droitwich High School back in 2024, and they got involved in the scheme, taking photos of themselves walking and wheeling to schools to try and encourage others, and it was a huge success, and I know that they'll be more than happy to do it again based on the reactions that they had back then. And I think it's a very prominent time to do it. We've obviously got the LC whip going through with the county council for a number of the towns within Wychavon, and I think it's very important that if we want to make the most of the money that we will hopefully get from the LC whip consultation, that local school children need to be involved in that and give their feedback in terms of where they don't necessarily feel safe on a bike and where they need to see those improvements. And they can only do that by, of course, riding bikes. So I'm more than happy to support the motion and hope that it goes some way to encouraging active travel within our district.
Thank you. Councillor Dyke.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I think this is a great thing to do as well. I won't repeat what others have said, but I just wanted to tell you a very brief story. And maybe this is something that we also ought to think about. I was driving home from here a week or so ago. It was dark, it was raining. And I know the road quite well. So I knew I could see something in the distance, maybe 100 yards away, something like that. So I slowed down. And as I got there, I could see it was a cyclist. No lights, no high-vis jacket, no reflector things, absolutely nothing. So I had to wait and stop while this cyclist went on. And eventually I went round him, and so did other cars. But we really need to put some sort of safety aspect to this. If people are going to cycle, I was going to say motorcycle as well, but motorcycle is something quite different. I've been saying motorbike should think bike for years, but anyway, that's a side issue. So I do think something should be said about the fact that if they want to cycle on the road, which I think is preferable to cycling on the pavement, then there should be some recognition of what they wear and they don't get knocked off the bike, which would have been very, very easily on that night.
Thank you. Councillor Boatwright Green.
Thank you, Chair. And I have to say, I thought this jumper was very suitable for the Christmas season. I do quite like the dinosaur versus Christmas theme. I thought it was the way to go. Fully support this motion. I just wanted to just kind of highlight the first 2 points though. Work with all schools in Wychavon to identify the barriers. Well, yes, definitely at the Pershore High when they came here last month to kind of discuss kind of their issues that they have. One of the things they pointed out was, well, the reason they didn't feel safe was because drivers were not paying attention, including they could actually see kind of looking into the cars, people on their phones. Outside Pershore High, we actually do have a dedicated cycle path. which is great. So it's perfect for that particular point. But one of the young people pointed out to me last year that off Three Springs Road, they had tried to cycle to school twice and had been knocked off their bike at junctions. Thankfully, not seriously hurt, but in one case, the driver just left. They were on the side of the road. And on the second occasion, thankfully, they did stop, but clearly hadn't been paying attention. Also, as people will be aware, I live in Pinvin, which has some of the narrowest main roads you can possibly imagine, where we have a lot of HGVs driving down them. Recently, when I was invited to a bike bus in Drakes Broughton, I said, absolutely, I'll definitely head over. I found myself walking the 250 metres from the middle school to the A44 junction because I didn't feel safe. It was one where it's too narrow, there are too many lorries going past, and as much as I enjoy a hospital visit, I did not want to, and I actually genuinely felt like I was going to get hit. It was not a case of I felt a little unsafe, it was I genuinely felt like I was going to get hit. Those roads are just not wide enough. These are barriers that I'm not entirely sure we can overcome. And I think it's something that, bearing in mind one of them is outside of school, I think we need to be aware of the fact that parents will be saying the same. And possibly one of the things we might need to do is think about how, once we've identified those barriers, we then communicate those to the county council. Because so far I have found the county council to be less than willing to actually look at how we might make our roads safer. Saying this as someone who's now been there almost 5 years, whenever I do highlight that there is a particular issue and this is a barrier to people cycling, it's met with, we need to make people feel safe. Well, you can tell me that I'm safe on Main Street as much as you want. I don't feel safe and I'm not going to cycle on that road, and there's a school there. So I think it's something, yes, absolutely highlight those barriers, absolutely make a list of those barriers, but I think we also then need to do something where actually we do make people feel safe, because telling people they're safe doesn't make them feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Middleborough.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, so this is an excellent report that's come forward. I just want to pick up 3 points. It's got to be about families, and that is in the recommendation, and that's absolutely vital. It's the people who take children and collect children from school, the wider and the narrower family arrangements there. It says work with all schools in Wychavon. I hope that also includes the independent sector within Wychavon, which sometimes is actually easier to get to than the state sector. And just picking up from Councillor Boatwright Green, there is a particular blockage with the county council and active travel arrangements which are vital for this in relation to the Parkway station at Norton. If it was safe to walk to the Parkway station from Littleworth and Norton and cycle there, I'm sure that older students would actually use the station for getting into Worcester, to the colleges in Worcester, and I don't think many will travel to Evesham, but they could go to Bromsgrove as well from that station. So the county council need to be coerced into getting on with this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thanks, Chairman. Just the other night I was buying a Christmas present for my son. He likes cycling. He also likes cars, and this one was about cars. And it sort of was saying just how dangerous they are. And it turns out that we have killed across the world more or less double the number of people whilst driving or using cars as we have in both the world wars put together, which is a staggering statistic. So it is a dangerous world out there, and I think the bit that for me that's missing from this is the concept that if we build it, then people will come. By which I mean, if you look at London or Hamburg or Denmark or any of the flagship areas, I suppose, where we've got a lot of cycle paths, where we've got a lot of pedestrian crossings, etc., and there's been a real emphasis on it, you will see that the amount of usage is just phenomenal. There are junctions in London now where there are more cyclists than there are people in cars or buses or any other kind of transport. And that is a complete revolution from the way it looked 20 or 30 years ago. Now, I know that all comes down to funding, And I know it's not our primary duty, but we are a planning authority. And I think we, perhaps in an adjunct to this, need to just set aside or talk about all the things that we can do as a planning authority to encourage these measures. Just the other day I got a note from Create Streets. They've just done a short paper about A roads and how you can improve A roads and sort of take the sting out of them, if you like, in villages. And I've sent it to the Ombersley Parish Council for further discussion, and obviously the County Council member there. And I think it's something that we could look at. But for now, if you are a child and you live in Ombersley and you fancy cycling to the local secondary school, which is in Droitwich, you would be absolutely ill-advised to do so. You know, you'll be going along the A4133, a very narrow, busy main road with all the lorries and all the rest of it. Yeah, I just don't think anybody would do it, and they don't. So the issue is, how do we overcome that, both in the short and the long term? What's our plan along with the County Council? How do we encourage that through our planning policies and proposals? Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Della.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think, for me, I like this motion, but I think when we're talking about barriers, we're often talking about infrastructure, and that's what's been said a lot about tonight. But when you're a parent dropping off a child, it's not always infrastructure is one of the key aspects. It's time. And dropping a child off school, if they're not in breakfast club, you have to be there by about 8:30, and then you have to get home, and then you have to get in your car or catch the train. There is a lot of time involved with that. So I think that's a barrier we need to look at, and how we can work with schools on that. Because I have to say, while I don't cycle my children to school, I walk with them to school. And it's the most pleasurable 10, 15 minutes you can have. You can have time, they chat away, although it does take longer because they pick up sticks and stones and it takes forever to get anywhere. But it is a very pleasurable experience. And I think if we can find a way of overcoming that barrier of parents having to rush to work or using time as a reason, then I think this could go a long way, because it's a very pleasurable experience to take the kids to school.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Councillor Hardman again.
Just to like to remind people as well, please promote Park That Bike. And if you haven't already used it, I have, we've got Brompton bikes at Pershore Station. They unfold, managed to do it with Joe. They are lighter than I thought, and actually much sturdier and bigger than I remember. So please promote.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Morris, do you want to just briefly sum up, and then we will take this to the vote?
Yes, just to thank everyone. Some really good points made, and I think this is just a starting point. And the barriers will be different for different schools and for different families, and we need to problem solve in each area, and we need community-wide support. I've been doing the bike bus to Westacre now for 6 weeks, and I have to say, almost all of the motorists seem to be really willing to, they like seeing the kids on the road. But, you know, we're a very small band of people and we move out the way quickly. In the grand scheme, I would like to see 2 hours a day during term time where there are loads of bikes on the school run, and we have car drivers planning their journeys differently. So they either go before 7:45 in the morning or after 9 o'clock. And that way we can give every parent the confidence that their child can cycle by themselves to school because loads of other people were doing it. And in my time, my parents, we wouldn't have been seen dead being driven to school by our parents. We all walked, or we cycled, or we caught a bus. And wouldn't it be great if we could get back to that? I know I'm probably living in cloud cuckoo land, but I can always hope. But thank you very much. I'm really encouraged by the support.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, we will take this to the vote then. We have the proposal as written on your papers. All those in favour? Any against? No, I think that looks like unanimous then. Somebody's phone is ringing. We're getting a little musical background to the proceedings, but anyway. Right, moving swiftly on. Item 9 on your agenda under reports to council meeting, South Worcestershire Development Plan Review, main modifications consultation. Deputy Leader to introduce this, please.
Chairman, thank you. So I will start at page 31, if you've all got the papers in front of you. No, not, I can see that Councillor Boatwright Green has got. So, but I won't take you through from page 31 to 1174 because Ian MacLeod kindly sent through a summarised version for us. But basically what's before us this evening is to go out to consultation for the main modifications, where it's not anything other than that. The SWDPR obviously has gone to the inspector for examination, and the main modifications are as a result of that. To be very clear that it is imperative that we vote for this to go to consultation this evening. The outcome, if we didn't, means that we wouldn't be able to have the consultation, which means that we wouldn't then be able to adopt the South Worcestershire Development Plan review by the end of March, which is the timeline that the government have given us. Now, if you remember when the government put those housing numbers, I won't describe them in any other way, in place, they allowed us to continue through the process to have the SWDPR adopted. But obviously we have to work to their timescales, which is why if we didn't put this through this evening to go out to consultation, we wouldn't meet those timescales, and all those years of work would be basically completely wasted, and we would be in a situation as if like other local authorities who don't have a development plan. So it's really to say that it's imperative that we do this, and this is basically approving the modification schedule that's within as at 2.1 on page 32, and then we're authorising just a slight change because the wording is slightly incorrect, authorise the Director of Planning and Infrastructure in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the portfolio holder for planning, infrastructure and rural vitality. So I propose as at 2.1 and 2.2 at page 32.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. This day couldn't have come earlier from my point of view. If you're on the planning committee or if you're a planning officer, you'll have longed for this day because it's been a long time coming. And a great deal of work has been done for the culmination of this. And it is, as the Deputy Leader says, very important that we go to the next stage as quickly as possible so that we don't wake up at night thinking of tilted balances all the time, which for those in the planning committee we've been doing for probably some time. So I really think this is a fantastic day. We should push it through, and I will gladly second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any... Oh, Councillor Boatwright Green, followed by Councillor Tucker. Before people start shoving their hands up, I would just like to remind people what we're voting on, and therefore what we're discussing is whether or not to proceed to consultation. We're not here to go over the individual details of the plan itself. Anyway, Councillor Boatwright Green.
I'll ignore the comments I heard behind me. Just to say a massive thank you to the planning team for bearing with me over the past week as I've asked ridiculous numbers of questions. Obviously, this is an incredibly important document and has been many years in the pipeline. And I completely understand where we are at this stage, and with certain policies being removed as a result of going through the inspector, I am very keen to get this through as fast as possible. So, of course, we'll be voting for it. But it is a massive kind of thank you to the team for bearing with me this week, as this is a very large document, and I chose to read it, which obviously meant that I had questions.
Thank you. Councillor Liz Tucker.
Thank you. Fully supported going forward to consultation. But where there are things that people would like to have raised, and in particular I'm interested in the village categories, I presume that we can send in, or parish councils can send in their comment on it. Let's suppose they had a significant comment which was accepted by the planners. What would happen then? Can they make the internal decision and then go out to modification without having to come back?
Yeah, Deputy Leader, if you want to respond to that.
I would just really reiterate, Councillor Tucker, that this has already gone through examination. So this is only the modifications that are going out to consultation. And if obviously anybody wants to respond to the consultation based on the modifications, obviously that's the point of the consultation. But if you're referring to anything about categories of villages or anything whatsoever that is contained in the original SWDPR that's not involved in the modifications, then no, it's not relevant. I don't know whether, Ian, you want to expand on that?
That's completely correct. You can only comment on the modifications being proposed. So the extent of any feedback just has to relate to those changes in the plan, not new points of debate or points which have already been considered by the inspectors.
I would just, as I said, I'm not going to be difficult I will support the vote, but I would like the opportunity to speak to someone about the fact that many years have taken place since the original village categorization, and many services have been lost in that time. Now, I'd like to have the opportunity to discuss a particular village.
Yes, Deputy Leader.
Chairman, thank you. Where I appreciate what you're saying is that time has elapsed and therefore services in villages are different necessarily to what went forward with the SWDPR. That will be a continued picture. As we find at the moment, inspectors make decisions based on appeals that are completely different to the categorisation of villages as they stand in the SWDP, and I'm sure that will probably continue in the SWDPR. But as far as this is concerned, it isn't relevant at all.
Okay, not seeing any other hands going up. Do you want to summarise any of that, Deputy Leader, before we go to the vote, or are you happy with where we are with this?
No, I'm more than happy, Chairman, thank you. I think hopefully this will be approved unanimously as all members acknowledge the pain that the Planning Committee go through and officers go through on a daily basis without the SWDPR in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will take that to the vote then. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, well that's clearly carried. Moving on then to item 10, Local Development Scheme 2025 to 2027. Again, Deputy Leader, to introduce this, please.
Chairman, thank you. The local development scheme isn't something that's new to members because we've seen various versions of this as we go throughout the process of the SWDPR. So this, simply put, is really a timetable that every time that anything changes, as far as the process is concerned, we need to bring back a local development scheme for council to approve. So it's no more complicated than that. Members have seen it before, and it's just a change of dates and within the process to enable that to go through. So again, Chairman, I'm hoping for unanimous approval from members. So I'm happy to propose that recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'm happy to second that recommendation, Chair.
Councillor Charles Tucker.
Thank you. I'm still scrolling to get to the actual table which shows the timetable at the end of the proposals in this document. The comment was made earlier on that if we didn't have our plan in place by the end of March, we would not meet the government target. Yet the document here shows that we're not expecting achievement of the plan until July. So could somebody comment on that, please? Adoption and completion in July.
That's the SIL review, which obviously is a separate process to the local plan. So the local plan is on track to be adopted at the end of March, just to assure you.
Then could I ask for clarification in the document that we've been given, because it actually does say 13, adoption and completion and judicial review period, Regulation 14 for SPDs and Regulation 20 6-foot DPDs, which I take it is additional to the main document.
That's correct. Those are additional, so supplementary planning documents like we're preparing for Worcestershire Parkway. The government advises that we need to get those in place by the summer, so they've set a date for those to be updated in line with that target. So, but the local plan itself, we need to get in place by the end of March.
Thank you. The document here, the Appendix A, just is not very clear on that point at all, because it does say at the end of March, it says submission to Secretary of State, an analysis of representations. Not exactly adoption, is it?
You're looking at it's probably best if we just explain the timelines, but there's a separate line for the community infrastructure levy process, which will go through its own examination process, and that is the timeline you're referring to, not the local plan timeline. We're more than happy to clarify the timelines for the local plan and the SIL process, but to be absolutely clear, local plan will be adopted by the end of March.
Right.
Are you happy with that response, Charles, or would you prefer to find some time to take that offline with officers afterwards?
I think Ian's explanation has clarified it. Thank you.
Okay. Can you turn your microphone off, please? Right. I'm not seeing any other hands raised, so in that case, we will again proceed straight to the vote on this one. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Okay, well that is also clearly carried. Right, so we move on to item 11, which is recommendations from Executive Board, and Councillor Stokes is going to start us off on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Similar to the recommendations from the Executive Board on the 19th of November, where I identified the great help that the overview and scrutiny, budget overview and scrutiny are doing, identifying some key issues. They're making sensible questions, that the responses are absolutely brilliant, and I'm really enjoying the process of the scrutiny. So thank you very much to that particular team, chaired by Julie Turker. So essentially, there is the recommendations, which I'll come to in a moment, but what I am pleased to see is that we have a budget of £17 million expenditure, and that is a particularly high budget. I'm looking forward to spending that, and as you will all know, it's coming from your earmarked reserves, which we had a great discussion about at the budget scrutiny. So at this point, I'll pass over to Rick Della, and then I'll come back in a little while. Thank you.
Councillor Dilla, if you want to talk on your bit of this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We went into detail with this at Exec Board. All I would add that to the paper is that this is a really proactive approach we have taken, and our strategic partners, our RPs, are very pleased that we've taken this approach. And yes, I'm very happy to push it forward.
Councillor Stokes.
Thank you. Yes, so with that, I just need to update you on a few things. As at today, hot off the press, I think it arrived just before 4 o'clock. We have today received the draft financial settlement, which we were expecting if you were part of the budget scrutiny. This is an improvement on the initial predictions or projections, and the Section 151 officer will be sending a summary around later today, so we do know that she'll be busy working this evening. So with that, I move the recommendations on pages 1195 and 1195 number 1, and then on the next page number 2 and number 3, and in addition take note of comments from the audit committee that the draft base revenue budget for 26-27 totaling £17.764 million at net expenditure level as summarised in the appendix, and the draft fees and charges as set out in Appendix D to the report. I also move the recommendations at the bottom of page 1196, namely that the effective from the 1st of January 2026, the waiving and following of DPA restrictions and shared ownership properties in the following instances be agreed: little 1, little 2, and that big 2, that delegated authority be given to the executive board member for housing, regulatory and customer services. Then number 3, that this is subject to a 2-year review, and that any requests outside of these areas should be subject to site allocations and considered on a case-by-case basis. Thank you. Make those recommendations.
Thank you. And Councillor Della, do you wish to second these? Or Councillor Deputy Leader.
Chairman, thank you. Yes, I take pleasure in seconding both of these recommendations from the Executive Board, and would particularly like to thank officers, obviously, for everything that's been involved in the budget preparation, and also to pick up on what Councillor Della said with regards to the shared ownership within the housing document, and just to reiterate that this isn't something that we were forced to do or somebody told us to do. This is something that we've proactively done to work with our housing providers to ultimately give people better outcomes as far as their housing is concerned, and make sure that people that want housing are going to be able to get it, and it removes those barriers. So very happy to second both these recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands raised to speak to these, so I think we can go straight to the vote on the recommendations from the Executive Board, which have been nicely summarised for us and read out in detail, so I won't go over them again. All those in favour, please, could you show? Any against? And any abstentions? That's clearly carried. So thank you all. And we now move on to reports of chairman, starting with the Executive Board. Deputy Leader.
Chairman, thank you. There has been one meeting of the Executive Board since the last ordinary meeting of Council. The Executive Board met on the 19th of November to consider the budget for 26-27, the mid-year Treasury Management Review, the waiving of designated protected area rules for shared ownership housing in certain circumstances, an update on UK Shared Prosperity Fund and England Prosperity Fund for the period April to September 2025, our Q2 We Are Wychavon performance report. Very pleasing council performance and results were noted, and recommendations in respect of the budget and the shared ownership housing have just been approved by council. And I'm very pleased to say that I have an update hot off the press that we've had a letter from the Minister of State for Local Government and Homelessness today to confirm that they've received our proposal for local government reorganisation, and notifying us that there will be a consultation early in February, and that consultation will last for 7 weeks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Not seeing any hands for questions or comments on that one. So moving on to Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Ward will give this as he chaired the relevant meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The ONS Committee last met on the 3rd of December, and we had a very detailed and interesting presentation on the revenue and benefits update. That's moving from Civica back into the council from January 2023. A lot of work had been done in terms of improving service provision and unified approaches with a large technologically advanced system, while still maintaining the personal touch and people being able to still ring in for those people who were not able to use the internet. So that was an excellent report. Then we had a summary report on We Are Wychavon, Q2 of 25-26. And the council are on track for 26 of the 27 promises. And we will be receiving an update paper on planning enforcement, which would be interesting to receive. We also had an overview of the council budget for 26-27, and Then we had scrutiny team updates from the budget scrutiny team, which are doing an excellent work, as mentioned previously by Councillor Stokes, and also the Health and Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The date for the next meeting is January the 14th, where we expect the Police and Crime Commissioner to attend, and I recommend that all members of the council attend, and for this, it's open to everybody to actually attend that meeting. And that concludes my report, and thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, moving on then to Planning Committee. Councillor Wright.
This will be a very short report. We've had 3 meetings since the last full council and considered 17 applications and, for your interest, approved developments for another 507 houses, which isn't unusual, really. We seem to be approving all sorts of things at the moment. As we said earlier, I'm very enthusiastic that at last we're going towards a plan which should stop speculative developments and give us a bit more chance. It's been very hard work for the officers and for the committee, and I do thank you for your diligence at the meetings. We haven't had any tomatoes thrown, as far as I know, yet. But we haven't any time for an extended New Year's break because we start again on Thursday the 8th, I think, of January, which you've had, so please don't go away. And also for the person who left this in my pigeonhole, this isn't a bribe, I don't think, to the chair of the committee. Everybody wants me to open it, but it says do not open before December the 25th, so I'm hoping it's not something desperately bad. No, I don't think it's a bomb. But they've spelt Queen Elizabeth wrong, putting 2 E's in it, so obviously they don't come from Worcestershire, do they? But thank you for your time, and thank you, Chair.
Do we have any points of clarification? No? Okay, in that case, we will move on to the Licensing Committee. Councillor Day.
Thank you, Chair. Since the last full council meeting, we've had one full committee meeting on the 15th of October. On the 26th of November, where we considered the Deregulation Act 2015 and the increases in fees and charges. I won't talk about the Deregulation Act because I think it's the subject of one of the questions that we're dealing with later on in this meeting. We also had 3 subcommittee meetings where we looked at the approval of 12 cars and also street trading for Bretforton Community Social Club. Thank you.
Do we have any points of clarification? No. In that case, moving on to Member Conduct Committee, Councillor Raphael.
Chairman, thank you. There has been no formal meeting of the Member Conduct Committee since this last council met. The monitoring officer continues to deal with parish council complaints informally. Chairman, this time of year, it's wholly appropriate to give thanks to all members who sit on this committee for their service throughout the year, especially to our co-opted members who give their time so freely, and of course the Wychavon officers who support us throughout the year, particularly Misha Patel and Mel Harris. Mel, you will be greatly missed. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands raised for points of clarification, so we will move on to the Audit Committee. Councillor Adrian Hardman.
Yes, good evening, Chairman, and good evening, Council. Yes, we met on the 21st of November, and the first item of business was to review the skeleton of the budget and try and see into the government's mind over such things as business rates pooling and the revenue support grant. Since they've announced the settlement this afternoon for local government, I suspect that, having spent about an hour looking at it, I suspect that our vision was clouded by fog, since it appears to me that the core spending power only rises due to the 5% due to council tax increase. Moving on to happier subjects, though. We moved then on to Treasury Management, and I'm glad to be able to report that we are achieving the benchmark target that we set ourselves. We then reviewed internal audit's progress, and I was pleased to be able to report that they are now fully staffed and they are on time, and I'm expecting them to complete their work by the 31st of March. But we did make one recommendation, which was that ONS would continue to review street cleaning and its performance. The external auditors were kind enough to attend and reassure us that their progress on re-establishing the benchmark is proceeding, so that they will, in probably 3 years' time, be able to give us a clean audit opinion. But they didn't signpost any significant weaknesses, and all appears to be going well. And finally, just to echo a note, sadly, our independent member of some years now, Graham Moore, was unable to attend because his wife was taken ill. So we'd like to thank him for all his service over the years at the Seasons Greeting and trust all is well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And again, I'm not seeing any hands raised for points of clarification, so we will move on to item 18, which is questions from members of the council, of which we do have 3. So starting with a question from Councillor Nicola Morris.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you again for supporting the motion. This question is linked to the motion. The motion set out the general principle which we were all in agreement of. The question is about the detail that might be behind that. Given Wychavon's recent commendable £53,000 funding allocation to the Walk, Wheel, Cycle Trust, as heard earlier, that's formerly Sustrans, to promote active travel, how is Wychavon proposing to ensure that schools in our district take part in the Walk, Wheel, Cycle Trust's big Walk and Wheel 2026? Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Beverley Hartman to give a response on that.
Thank you. And like you, I'm delighted that we have made the decision to have Walk, Wheels, Cycle Trust. It's been really successful. I'm really pleased how it's gone this year. I must say I was also, like you, disappointed that not a single school took part in that big Walk and Wheels event. And I like to commission with the Trust a different approach next year. And I like to, with the Trust, I like to propose that the Town Centre Advisory Group on the 12th of July next year discuss this issue. I think it's a way to move forward. I also think there's a few areas we need to address, not in any particular order, but one is directly engagement with schools and focus on them and how to promote that event. Second one is targeting support for schools. Like, we've got 5 schools we're working with at the moment. I think we also get feedback from them and how it's going and build on that and their enthusiasm. And I think they also help with promoting it with other people. Number 3 is a campaign approach with the organisation and with partnership with the council and local groups and the schools to spread the word. And finally, again, a bit more about communication is use our internal and external communications to promote it in any way we can. And also, not just us, but any councillors, please promote it as well.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response? You are entitled to a supplementary if need be.
Yes, I'm very happy with that response. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we move on to the next question, which is from Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question, surrounding taxis and private hire companies, and we wanted to raise this issue as Christmas is a very busy time for our local taxis, and it's important for residents to know that we are committed to ensuring taxis are safe. The Deregulation Act 2015 and implications of the Deregulation Act, the right to roam. Under the Deregulation Act, this gives access for taxis and private hire companies to set up satellite offices in neighbouring areas, one private hire company to another, but under licences with other authorities outside the Wychavon area, not limited or restricted by another authority. Wolverhampton County Council is the main authority that licences taxis outside the Wychavon authority. Wolverhampton County Council and Wychavon work to ensure there is a consistent approach to any vehicles working in the Wychavon district to be fully compliant with the requirements to protect the public, and that drivers are fit and proper, vehicles are suitable, safe and comfortable. Applying for hire. This is when a person hasn't, or passenger, hasn't pre-booked the journey through a licensed private hire company in our authority, and rogue drivers who pick up passengers outside pubs and clubs, etc. Often are unlicensed drivers who overcharge, have poor vehicle driving standards, or pose safety threat risks, often targeting vulnerable people at night. This is illegal. In 2018 and July 2024, taxi operators in Wychavon raised concerns cross-border issues of operators within the Wychavon area. Under Sean's Law, Safeguarding and Road Safety Act 2022, and the questions: can our passengers be sure that driver and vehicles have had to undergo the rigorous and necessary procedures and strict vetting? Is there a way of ensuring these satellite offices are properly licensed by another authority? Is there cross-council sharing of information of drivers and vehicles to ensure that loopholes are closed to prevent unsuitable drivers to get licenses elsewhere after being refused? And is this mandatory? Uber as a private company can operate cross-country and can be licensed by any local authority. Does the same cross-council sharing apply? And are there effective police measures in place to monitor this issue? And just quickly, Sean's Law was named after Sean O'Callaghan, murdered by a taxi driver in 2011. And the law aims to prevent such tragedies by improving passenger safety. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I believe Councillor Day is going to respond to this one.
Thank you, Chair, and my thanks to Councillor Sims for raising the questions and the issue. It is a timely moment to do that. Yes, the Deregulation Act came in 2015, came into force on the 1st of October 2015. I think the right to roam was already an existing right, so it was perfectly possible for you, for example, if you wanted to take a taxi to Heathrow, to ask for a taxi from Hounslow to come and pick you up and do the journey rather than taking one from your local authority. So a driver in a vehicle licensed by a local authority could work anywhere in the country on a pre-booked basis. That was already, if you like, a risk that was out there. And it's always been the case that a resident of one area could make a booking with a private hire operator licensed in a totally different area. So we should just make that clear up front. The Deregulation Act, however, further enabled a private hire operator licensed by one local authority to accept a booking and then subcontract it to another operator licensed by a different local authority. So, for example, you might make a booking with a company in Wychavon, and they then might subcontract that work to a company in Worcester City, and they might then come and fulfil the job. That's basically what this change allowed. Previously, they could have only subcontracted that work to an operator that would have been in Wychavon. And I guess the question at the heart of all of this is, does that increase the risk to you as a passenger? And I think I would argue it shouldn't. And the reason for that is that Worcester City and all of the local authorities across the country are under the same duty as we are, to make sure that all of the taxis are in good condition and to make sure that all of the drivers meet the appropriate standards. And therefore, there isn't necessarily a reason for thinking that you're going to be at greater risk. I know we'd love to think, and I'm sure we're right, that Wychavon does an excellent job and probably better than any other council. But I think on this particular issue, there doesn't appear to be any evidence, at least that's what the WRS licensing team are saying. There's no evidence that there's been any significant threat to local residents as a result of these changes. You might ask the question, well, why were they introduced? And I think my view of it was they were partly introduced probably to counteract Uber. In other words, it was giving taxi companies the opportunity to create businesses that would be countrywide and therefore offer Uber some sort of competition. So that's what that one. Applying for hire, I think the point there is applying for hire refers to the act of a vehicle stopping to pick up a passenger for hire and reward when that passenger hasn't pre-booked the journey through a licensed private hire operator. So clearly that's not something that you are allowed to do unless you are a licensed taxi driver within Wychavon. And where the issues have arisen when vehicles have allegedly parked or waited near or even on taxi ranks, it is obviously up to residents and ourselves to report those. Officers are monitoring this matter and, where necessary, following up on any reports of persistent or repeat offending with the respective local authorities and licence holders. So effectively this is something that's been in place for a while, that issue, if you like. It is up to residents to be alert to it. I know our taxi drivers are alert to it. I don't believe myself, from what I've heard, that that is an issue that's not being addressed by any means. Sean's Law, as Councillor Sims said, that was, this has been 10 years really in the making since the death of Sean O'Callaghan. So under Sean's Law, there were several areas that were proposed to improve taxi safety and safeguarding, all of which were also part of the new taxi standards that were introduced by the Licensing Committee in Wychavon in 2022. And some of the key aspects of these are as follows. Importantly, the introduction of a national register, NR3 it's called. So a national register of suspensions and revocations which officers check and add to. And this database lists nationally all of the licences that have been suspended or revoked. If any driver has been suspended or had their licence revoked in Wychavon, then officers will add that to the database, and obviously that's happening across the country. So we've got a much better understanding of people who have been revoked than we had in the past. There is mandatory safeguarding training for all licence holders and refresher training every 3 years. All new drivers must undertake the competency certificate, which is a full day's training made up of various modules, one of which includes the safeguarding module. A test is sat by drivers at the end of the day. An amendment was made to the policy earlier this year to introduce mandatory safeguarding refresher training to all drivers upon the renewal of their licence. So that's a further strengthening of the position. Thirdly, we've got regular DBS checks. So all drivers must sign up to the DBS up-to-date service so that a 6-monthly check can be made on their DBS status by the team. If drivers are not signed up to the up-to-date service, they will be referred to a committee. And fourthly, all new vehicles are inspected by officers and an MOT must have been undertaken within 30 days. Any vehicle over 7 years old are subject to 6 monthly checks, so that's a 6 monthly MOT, and when inspected they must have had an MOT undertaken within 30 days. Now, is there a way of ensuring these satellite offices are properly licensed by another authority? I think that goes back to the heart of the issue. Do we trust other authorities to do their job? I think we should. Obviously, as a council, we don't have the capacity to have oversight of all other local authorities. Wolverhampton, I think, is the special case in point. You'll be aware that Wolverhampton handles almost all of the Uber licensing for the whole of the country. And the feedback that I've had from our officers is that they're actually very impressed by both the technology and the competence that Wolverhampton offer in terms of assessing Uber taxi drivers. They go out all around the country, they've got staff all around the country, and they've got technology to share information very rapidly. Is there cross-council sharing of information of drivers' vehicles to ensure that loopholes are closed to prevent unsuitable drivers to get licences elsewhere? Yes, there are. That's the point that I've just made. So the NR3 register is in place. WRS also use IDB, which is an intelligence database that is shared with other third parties, including the police. The question, Uber as a private company can operate cross-county and can be licensed by any local authority. Does the same cross-council sharing apply? Yes, it does. All local authorities must be signed up to NR3 as part of the introduction of the taxi standards in 2022. At the time of its introduction, any local authority that had not signed up were asked to give reasons as to why they hadn't, and we believe that all local authorities have now signed up to NR3. Are there effective police measures in place to monitor this issue? WRS officers meet with the police colleagues monthly, but also have ongoing dialogue with them weekly, if not daily. WRS and West Mercia Police carry out joint enforcement operations, and if there are any issues picked up from either party, the information is shared immediately. I'd just add that if anybody has any further concerns or have residents who have any further concerns, then they're very welcome to bring those forward to me and our officers, and we'll follow them up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, are you happy with that response? Do you have any supplementary to that?
No, I'm extremely happy, and I think our residents will be. So thank you very much, Councillor Day and the licensing team. I think it's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, then we move on to the third question, which is Councillor Reeves, and I cannot resist introducing that by saying that he wants to talk bollards.
A load of bollards. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Yes, for context, Evesham has two sets of automatic bollards located at the base of Bridge Street and at the entrance of the Market Square. Both locations lead onto pedestrianised areas of the town, and the bollards are installed as a public safety measure. These bollards have been for some time and are currently out of order. Following Councillor Googe's recent efforts to obtain an update from Worcestershire County Council regarding the reinstatement of these bollards, a response was provided and gratefully made public. Thank you. The response by County Council indicates that while a suitable contractor has been identified, the County Council has decided not to proceed with the installation due to cost, citing an inability to reach agreement with Wychavon District Council regarding installation and ongoing maintenance. Given the clear safety purpose of this infrastructure and the ongoing public concern regarding pedestrian vulnerability in these areas, I'd be grateful for clarification on the following points. Does Wychavon have any obligation to contribute to the installation, operation or maintenance costs of Bridge Street and Market Square bollards? And number two, if no such obligation exists, can the Council advise what steps, if any, Wychavon can take to formally challenge and support reconsideration of Worcestershire County Council's decision? Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Middleborough, I understand you have a response for this.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Reeves, for your question. Worcestershire County Council is the responsible organisation, being the Highway Authority. Wychavon isn't the Highway Authority and so has no legal responsibility regarding this matter, either in terms of making financial contribution or taking on the ongoing operation and maintenance costs of the bollards. I understand the Council did contribute to the original installation of the bollards. This contribution was made as a goodwill gesture at the time and did not represent any recognition of responsibility or future obligation on our behalf. Given the importance of the issue to residents, we are happy to consider making a limited financial contribution again as part of our role leading on making Evesham an even better place to live in. It's the Worcestershire County Council role to install and manage the bollards. Worcestershire County Council have made an unrealistic request that would have involved Wychavon taking on the ongoing operation and maintenance of the bollards. I repeat, Wychavon isn't the Highway Authority, and assuming responsibility for the operation of the bollards by Wychavon would not only pose legal challenges, but also expose this council to ongoing financial risks. Following our rejection of their initial offer, Worcestershire County Council terminated discussions. In spite of recent positive comments made by Councillor Perks, Cabinet Member for Highways on Worcestershire County Council in the media, it is disappointing that Councillor Richard Morris, our leader, having written to Councillor Joe Monk, leader of Worcestershire County Council, and asking her to progress the project, has not had any reply. We remain ready to work for the benefit of Evesham residents to get the bollards operational, but we need Worcestershire County Council and the Worcestershire County councillors in Evesham to pull their fingers out and get the money in place to do the job.
Thank you. Councillor Reeves, are you happy with that, and do you have any follow-up question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Middleborough. We need resolution to this situation. Only this week we saw the conviction of a man who, out of frustration, drove into a crowd in Liverpool. There have been a number of incidents. I've personally witnessed some years back in a neighbouring town a car hurtling into a cafe seating outside by a roundabout as a man had some ill health behind the wheel, and more locally, a driver left a vehicle in gear which hurtled towards my daughter and other children as well, which thankfully no one was harmed. Many, including myself, use our town centre, and again with my young children in tow. This should be a safe place. And in my opinion, the no that we've received from County Council is negligence on that part. So thank you for continuing to discuss this with County, and hopefully we can see the bollards reinstated extremely soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Middleborough, do you have a response to the response?
I think my response is actually we want to be on the same track, and we are on the same track as you, Councillor Reeves. And if you can have a go at the appropriate county councillors and the officers at the County Council, we will be supporting you, and you will be supporting us doing that.
Thank you. So finally, we move on to our council debate for the evening. In accordance with procedure rule number 13, Councillor Boatwright Green has been selected to present this item for debate. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. It was only last week I found myself trying to explain to a friend who's from Germany our obsession with using a small chocolate frog to measure our inflation rate in this country. And I was quite intrigued by his response that to him it actually made a lot of sense, was that it's that feeling of being able to afford a little treat. And to him it actually made a lot of sense, and he actually said that it's something that in many ways, actually most countries do. Because inflation is that thing that every year you experience, unless you live in Japan. And of course, you start to have to make adjustments to your budgets, and you start to have to think about what it is you're going to spend your money on. And of course, Christmas is here, and it's a time when we should be thinking about getting together with family and friends. And life should be more than just about survival. It should be the ability to have a sweet treat and get together and actually share and enjoy your life. But for a lot of people, the last few years, watching inflation go up as it has, of course, this isn't how people have felt. One of the things I've found particularly bizarre about kind of looking into this, of course we've kind of got to know the term shrinkflation quite a lot over the last couple of years, is that obviously this idea that if you shrink the size of things, that it's to do with rising costs, and obviously it's to make sure that you can still purchase them. I was really shocked to discover that for a lot of goods that we're actually buying, that the shrinking has actually been quicker than the costs rising. And so what we've actually found is that, yes, you have been paying more, but actually that small chocolate frog shouldn't be 35p. If you actually use inflation and the rising costs of the materials, it should be 25p. And so there's an extra 10p there that seems to have appeared and gone on to someone else's coffers. And so we're living in a time when, yes, inflation has gone up, but also the money seems to be going somewhere. Personally, this is a little bit kind of, I'm very conscious of this in that I bought my house in 2021, having saved a lot of, well, what I consider to be a lot of money. It probably actually wasn't, because it's quite a small house. But obviously my 5-year mortgage is up, and I'm very aware that the interest rates are very different. And so, of course, I'm spending quite a lot of time trying to work out what small treats I'm going to be able to afford, and also what cuts I'm going to have to make. But those cuts are going to be at the expense of local businesses, because the things I'm going to cut are things like fish and chips on a Friday. They're going to be a pint in the local pub. It's things that actually will have an impact on people's day-to-day, because I could be impacting on their jobs. And so I'm very aware of the fact that, yes, I could be making those, well, I will be making those cuts, but actually it's putting local businesses at risk as well. And so really with this debate, it wasn't so much kind of talking about necessarily the specifics of housing or of community safety or any of those things, but really more about what is it that we can do as councillors at Wychavon to still help to promote our local businesses and help and support them, to make sure that people have access to ways to budget responsibly and sensibly. And I'll be the first to admit I don't always do that, and then have to deal with the repercussions. But also dealing with companies where possibly they're taking more money than they should. And I mention this because I'm actually feeling a little bit relieved at the moment in that my electricity company has been taking hundreds of pounds more than they should have been, because just in case, you know, you're coming into Christmas and you're coming to winter and we've got to take more money from you, because in summer, of course, you might not be using as much of that. And so I'll be paying off my car insurance with the massive rebate I'll be getting, because they've been taking hundreds of pounds more than they should have done. When I looked into this, billions of pounds is currently sat in electricity company savings accounts, because people like me fall for it, and we go, yeah, absolutely, I don't want to get behind with my bills. And actually, they've been sitting there making interest on my money. And so it's more kind of thinking about how we can help our residents to understand that actually there are ways to save money, there are ways to help out our local businesses, and what is it we can do as a group of people to promote that.
Okay, thank you. Before I just open it up for debate, I'd like to remind people that we have a maximum of 30 minutes, which starts from the time that Dan started speaking, not when it ended. So if you have comments to make, it's in your own interest to keep them brief. Councillor Birch. Oh, Councillor Della.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That wasn't the direction I thought you were going in, Dan, when you started that. I would like, though, to highlight what we do as a council, and then which we can circulate all the areas in which we support. I think this is a very important issue. And we have a number of, and I thought it was a good opportunity to thank our staff, who are many of whom are sat at the back, who deal with people with cost of living on a day-to-day basis. But as a council, so far, what we do is we offer the discretionary welfare fund. We have multiple promises around reducing hardship. We have SLAs with our voluntary sector. We have delivered 7 rounds of household support fund. We are in conversation with food, but this is on that point. We're in conversation with food providers. Our community assistant is currently doing a research project to look into issues and impact regarding emergency food provision. Our community team, who lead a lot of these projects, many of these projects are being delivered and will continue to evolve, such as the Isham Playground in round 5 of the CLG. We have youth support providers. We have work around social mobility. Our Revs and Bens team are very active and proactive in their work in terms of working with people. And interestingly, you mentioned about what we can do to support people with budgeting. I think the key aspect here would be around our financial inclusion officer, who has done incredible work working with those who are the most vulnerable people, working with residents to maximise their income through the take-up of benefits and other support available, helping residents to deal with the debt issues, assisting residents to resolve complex benefit issues, working in collaboration with other teams such as our registered partners. Over the last 12 months, our financial inclusion officer has made a huge impact, supporting over 248 people. Amount of income secured is 76,000, and I think the key in terms of what we're doing business-wise, we've allocated 132,000 to support apprenticeships for all ages. Our UK SBS fund is targeted investment at key aspects of our geographical economy: business support, business grants, inward investment, town centre regeneration, visitor economy, including tourism, events and promotion. This has enabled the council to fund a comprehensive programme of economic development. And I think all of those are included, but I think the key aspect for us is the fact that we are the 4th lowest council tax. in the district. So I think all of those included supports our residents to a huge degree and allows them more freedom to design with their own money.
Thank you. Councillor Birch, then, in that case.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think it's a very important debate, and I'll take it in two halves if that's okay with my response. First of all, from a health and wellbeing point of view, we've got a dedicated social mobility officer in Leonie who's sat at the back, who does so much to support local groups and schools. Sometimes with providing exceptionally niche grant support, sort of support that a lot of organisations and groups wouldn't get through major grant scheme programmes, but by Leonie going into those schools and community groups and understanding where the need is, exactly what they need, we're able to put in what is often a few £100s, but often goes on to do far, far more. We also invest in our wellbeing hubs and community transport schemes, which often provide cost-effective alternatives to our residents. And a lot of what you mentioned sort of resonated with me, with the people who, below a certain threshold, there is an immediate support package in place. The council intervene, the government intervene. But it's often these people who do work 37, 39 and a half hours a week and, you know, work full-time jobs, but do suffer the effects of inflation. And it's those sort of people that we need to be able to support. So with these community groups, like community fridges, which are of course separate to food banks and open to anybody to use, and with community groups like the one Councillor Della runs with the baby bank, which are open to anybody regardless of the level of income, it's incredibly important as a council we continue to support those, because they are of course accessible to all of our residents. But in terms of how we support those businesses, because of course when inflation hits, and if the county councils plan to raise council tax by the level that they're threatening to do so, comes in, the first things that people will cut are a pint on a Friday night, a takeaway, trips to the bakery, those sort of luxuries and extravagances that don't necessarily come day to day. So it's incredibly important that we continue to support those businesses through UKSBF, through engaging with our place boards, who are often frontline with other businesses within our towns. And of course, event support. Tourism plays a huge part in supporting those local businesses, especially pubs and hospitality businesses. So we need to continue with our economic development team, and we already do an excellent job in engaging with and supporting in the hosting of local events, and by doing that we continue to bring people into our towns and villages who often spend money. And just to finish, of course, as Councillor Della said, we are the 4th lowest council tax authority in the country, and that's something that we should all be incredibly proud of. And the reason that we've got there is because we've invested our money in assets like the Waitrose buildings, assets like our leisure centres, and by doing that we've been able to keep the burden off our residents. And I think it's incredibly important that we continue to do just that, to ensure that we're not harming those who need the money in their pocket the most.
Thank you. Councillor Homer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also think it's a really important debate, having a 5-week-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and realising just how much nappies have gone up in 3 years is alarming in itself, and how many nappies you get through too. But I think I just want to go back on a couple of points. We are the 4th lowest council tax in the country and in the county of Worcestershire. That is because we are extremely well-run council. We have taken decisions in our past that have led us to this point. I'm not too old to remember the Grow Save Charge plan that we had here. We took proactive action to ensure that we could maintain low council tax. In fact, we froze council tax for a number of years. And I think, that's allowed us to do these things, such as the light switch-ons that have just happened across the towns. Those were provided free of charge. Those were events you could go and enjoy as families. The Battle of Evesham, the Plum Festival, the Salt Festival, none of those things would happen without the support, the financial support, and the officer time that happens from Wychavon. The free outdoor cinemas, which I'll accept are sometimes prone to the weather, are still things that we try and provide over the course of the summer for free activities. Our parks, our water parks, the list goes on. The distribution of UK SPF money, the New Homes Bonus when we had that as well, and how we fed that back down to the communities to ensure that projects could continue. Our well-being hubs. Honestly, I completely sympathise with the meaning behind the question. I think Councillor Boatwright's probably given a Conservative authority a brilliant Christmas present at this time of year to be able to list all of the wonderful things that we do here, and not to play politics. But I do think it's important that one of the things that somebody mentioned to me the other day which highlighted the difference between potentially the way we operate here at Wychavon and how our counterparts are operating at county at the moment, is that the campaigning stopped when the election stopped. And we're here now doing the business to make sure that we're delivering for our residents. We're not over-promising and we're not under-delivering. And that is the hesitation, and that is the dilemma that we will face if we don't stand up to what at times are flagrantly mistruths about what can be delivered when you believe people if you don't want to look into the detail. And I think that's important. And here we do politics well, we do it right, and hopefully long may that continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charles Tucker.
Thank you, Chairman. I just like to draw attention to the fact that, as has been said, the inflation rate has resulted in a 29.3% increase in costs over the period since COVID, and indeed that pay for most of those in employment has not kept with in pace with these increases. That includes our employees, Chairman, and I think that it is really a time to recognise the restraint that local government employees have taken over this difficult period of increasing inflation. And I think that in the time that we are coming towards local government reorganisation, it's an opportunity for us as Wychavon to take to recognise the sacrifices that our staff have made in terms of salaries, and to see if we can help with some sort of monetary benefit to our staff, which will go some way towards making up for the increase in prices. I'm not suggesting that that our employees should go on strike like the junior doctors or anything like that, but I think they have been extremely reserved in the way that they have approached reserved and also responsible in the way that they have approached the question of pay and salaries. So I would really like to think that there would be some way in the run-up to the local government reorganisation that we could recognise the performance of our staff and the pay restraint that they have inevitably had to accept, and to see if whether we can make payments which will will give them some compensation for the loss of earnings through inflation. Thank you.
Councillor Beverley Hardman, were you gesticulating in my direction earlier?
I'd just like to talk about some officers who are here. I'm not going to say their names yet because they seem to go under the radar. I mean, if you haven't got a lot of money, you can be isolated, you can be not involved in the community. This group of officers deal with often small amounts of money. They go and talk to the local residents, they start something off in the community, and that snowballs and builds. And that is the community officers. Thank you. I can see you over there. You do a very good job. You're very quiet at what you do. We don't recognise enough what you do, because those small things you do really sow big seeds in lots of places. So thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Chairman, thank you. And as this debate has gone on, I'd very much like to thank Councillor Boatwright Green for us to be able to talk about Wychavon and talk about the conservative values that we follow. Because although, before I say that, I was rather concerned that Councillor Tucker had suddenly joined Reform, that he wanted to give retention payments to officers like Reform want to do at the County Council. You did concern me for a little bit, because as we know, we are in a worrying situation at the County Council with those sort of ideas. But back to the conservative values, I think really you make the point in your debate that about pay not keeping pace with increases. And I think that's something, particularly as a business, from a business perspective, that's something that we're actually struggling with regards to what the government are doing. Because what the government are doing are not helping small businesses in any way, shape or form. They think they're basically helping people by increasing wages, but simply all that happens is that small businesses don't employ staff. Some small businesses go out of business, and ultimately nobody gains, because those businesses don't gain because they can't afford to pay those staff. And so simply, if they were going to have additional staff, they don't do that. So there's less jobs around. So we're in a situation nationally where the government aren't helping any of these situations at all, and they're certainly not helping business. But here at Wychavon, we're doing both sides of the Conservative values. We're helping those people that need help in all sorts of variety of ways. But what we're also doing is through the apprenticeships, everything that we do with small businesses, we're actually promoting growth and we're enabling growth, and we're doing that to support businesses in all the different ways that we do that, which all of us at Wychavon can be very proud of. But also it's been mentioned, not surprisingly, that we've got the fourth lowest council tax. But also the key thing around that has been, is, as Councillor Homer says, the reason why we've been able to do that, and the reason why, when New Homes Bonus was in place, we as a council didn't use that New Homes Bonus on things that other councils used to literally run their councils. We actually gave it back to the community. And so for 5 years, we gave £1 million a year in community legacy grants. And so £5 million has gone back out to communities. And that is all because of the fantastic investment that has been done by this council over all the years. But the key thing when we talk about council tax and council tax freeze, so I think it's, I stand corrected, but I think it's 7 years that we actually froze council tax for. And the reason why we're able to do that is because of the investments that we've made. But most importantly, it's because we've stuck to a principle. And that's coming back, Councillor Boatwright-Green, to your issue with the utilities. And I, unlike you, didn't want them to have my money if they weren't supposed to be having it. And it was a devil's own job to actually stop them taking that, the amount that they wanted to take each month. But I feel quite strongly that they should not be having the money that I don't owe them. And it's that principle really that we've always followed here at Wychavon as far as council tax is concerned. We have kept residents' own money in their own pocket. And that's what we've done with the council tax freeze, and that's the way that we've operated here at Wychavon. And so I think all in all those things that we do, coming from all those different angles, does very much continue to support everything that you have in your debate, and long may that be able to continue.
Thank you. Councillor Dyke.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just going back to the utility companies, which has been mentioned a couple of times. I've just worked it out. I pay £1,360, £68 a year. It's divided by 12, which is £114 a month. And I constantly pay that, whether I use more, use less, doesn't matter. I always pay the same. Bill goes up, I pay more. Bill comes down, I pay less. So you really ought to look at what your company is doing. They should not be having hundreds of pounds of your money because it's spread across a whole 12 months.
Councillor Adrian Hardman.
Yeah, well, before I send the wife off to go and read the meter, I just want to, we're probably wrongly. Yeah, I just want to pick up on Charles Tucker's point, because I do understand that the pay pressure that local government is under, because the Office of National Statistics today suggested that the public sector pay had risen by some 7.2% this year, which, I mean, I was quite surprised at. But it is extremely difficult, I think, for local government to move away from the Green Book. I mean, I have to say, you know, and collective bargaining, because that is how we operate across the country, through a collective settlement. And we have been growing the bottom bands, but probably actually not fast enough to a degree because of the national living wage increases. But I did some years ago take part in these negotiations, and I did think that Unison actually had a very odd take on the negotiations because they tended to target the middle bands as to where, and I understand why they did that, because really what they were trying to do was get the most amount of money really for social workers and people like that. And that was what they were targeting, not the bottom end of the scale. So I don't have a solution, but I acknowledge your problem.
Thank you. Councillor Middleborough.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, so the spirit of what's been put forward, I'm sure we all link into that in many ways. It's always dangerous, though, to start talking about one's own circumstances and different family arrangements, of course, have different priorities. I suspect fish and chips has disappeared on most family priorities 4 or 5 years ago in terms of the prices that are there. I think we've got to think about, and we can't change this, the climate change levies. We've got to think about that. The big thing which I think in the rural parts, which affect individuals who are not on a gas supply, is that horror when the tanker turns up to fill the tank, or the LPG tanker turns up to fill your LPG, where you're paying in advance for your fuels. And again, things that we've done in the past and things which I think need refreshing are those purchasing clubs that many parishes perhaps had 10 or 15 years ago, which as the individuals who ran them have got older, have faded away. And I think that's a great area that we can, in the coming couple of years, try and revitalise in the rural parts. And yeah, I'd like to have fish and chips on a Friday night, but it's too far to drive. It costs money to drive. And well, there we are. But I do want the oil, and I do want the LPG, and I need to be able to pay for that, and I need to be able to pay for the wood, which comes in advance to do the stove as well. Let's get some purchasing clubs going again.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. It's just to follow on from what my colleague, Councillor Tucker, was saying, and also Councillor Hardman, in that I think what Charles was trying to get across was the fact that we're talking about what can we affect as a council, and all of the brilliant, funds and incentives that we currently offer to our residents. But we also need to remember that we can affect our workers' lives as well. So the people that work for the council, and by not just looking at the middle bandings when we're looking at pay, and as we are getting rid of the lower bandings, what we're not doing very well is then looking at the bandings above those and increasing the pay for the people above. So it's all in line with one another. What we're doing is we're just getting rid of the lower bandings and leaving everybody else as they are. So you get job creep, and you get kind of jobs where they're no longer valued because you get these pay bandings that are then compressed as you're moving the lower bandings, quite rightly, further up. And what Councillor Tucker, I think, was rightly saying, actually, it's within our power to affect our staff's lives and give them a good rate of pay so that they can then go to the chip shop on a Friday evening. You know, not just our residents, what about our staff as well? And I think that's a really good point that you both made. Well done. And well done.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just a few brief points. I mean, I've heard several times now that we're the fourth lowest council charge in the country. We are not. Brothers and sisters, we are the second lowest. We've only got one to beat, and that's in Norfolk. I have looked. If anybody wants to refute me, we'll have a look at the table together. But I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that we are the second lowest, and we should be very proud of it, out of 164, all right? So I don't think we'll ever get to being the lowest, unfortunately, but we are very, very low. I think the other thing that's come out for me in this debate is, and I did have a look at my friend called ChatGPT, I'm afraid, during this, and what he sort of said was, I'm paraphrasing, that over the last 4 or 5 years, yes, there's been inflation. There was a lot of inflation introduced during Putin's war, the war in Ukraine, and that went ahead of wages. But broadly now, wages, real wages, are actually slightly higher on average than they were in 2019. So the issue, I think, is not for those actually who are in work most of the time. It's for those who are not in work. And that's why I'm so pleased that we've got the apprenticeship scheme. That's why we are encouraging people to get a job, because there are 946,000 people across the country who are not in employment, education or training. So these are people in the age group between 16 and 24. And that's a terrible start, really, I think, to a young life, to find yourself not doing anything in that period. And it doesn't set you off well in terms of the way you feel about yourself. And that leads me on, I guess, to my last point. I agree with Councillor Boatwright Green. The small chocolate frog is great. I just love Cadbury's, and there's nothing wrong with them. And I'll say that endlessly. However, I think we do all have a choice, don't we, as to whether or not you buy one and whether or not you eat it. And the issue, I think, for a lot of families, particularly those that are poor, is that when they get to this point, they feel a lot of pressure on them to do all the things that we're doing. You know, going out and spending a bit more, getting more fairy lights, you know, more lights outside, more lights, etc. Everything. It's just, if you like, it's overindulgence. And I know it might not sound a very Christmassy message, but it's true, really, if you watch all the Christmas films, and I've watched Love Actually every year since it came out, and I'm pretty sure that, as it says in there, the only real message is that all you really want at Christmas is love. You don't want more stuff, you don't want more debt, and you don't want more presents. What you really want is somebody to hug you. And that's pretty much my sermon for the day. I just wanted to say, I think we as a culture and as community leaders and as individuals, I think we also just need to say, you know, if you want to beat the companies and if you think you're being taken for a ride, well, don't buy it. Don't buy it. Do your own thing. Thank you.
Well, we have slightly exceeded our 30 minutes, having taken in chocolate frogs, fish and chips and pints of beer, which strikes me as being quite an effective Friday night out, actually. But so I'll hand it back to Councillor Boatwright Green for a final summing up.
Thank you, Chair. There's an interesting approach taken to this debate, because I was thinking about the fact that life should be more than just survival. Wasn't suggesting a trip to the Bahamas. I haven't been on holiday for years because I can't afford it. I was suggesting basically Freddo and some fish and chips. That was literally my expectations on life. How can we make people's lives better actively? And in terms of sharing life experiences, I think it's actually really important that we should do that. We shouldn't just be pretending that everyone has exactly the same experiences. I've been homeless 3 times, I've experienced poverty, I'm nowhere near that now. And actually, being able to afford fish and chips, well, that's something that people should be able to do. It's something that, frankly, we should be aspiring to make sure that everyone can have that small treat and they can afford it. I am loving, though, how I raised that I'd fallen into a common trap that millions of customers have fallen into across the country. And probably naively, I was a bit trusting. But no one has suggested we should do something about that as a council to help our residents be aware. And I suppose maybe that's the difference between Conservative and Liberal values. Well, you should have known versus do you know? And how do we make sure people do know? Regarding businesses, I will never begrudge the minimum wage. I do begrudge the increase in national insurance contributions for businesses, but no government in the last 10 years has been a friend to hospitality, either importing, growing, producing. We face challenges regardless of which government's been in power. One of the things that when it comes to council tax, I always find myself wondering is that we do have people on the social housing register, but you can't get on there if you're earning more than £38,000 a year. And I keep banging on about this, but that's basically 2 minimum wage incomes. Part of me always wonders, yes, we are the cheapest, or second cheapest council tax, but we are talking about £5 a year on council tax is incredibly unwelcome, because that would be the maximum we could contribute, although that would be £33.70 for me, because I'm band B, which equates to about 11 Freddos. And one of the things I always think is, if you took that £3.70 from me, could you spend that on youth centres? Could you spend that on social homes? Could you spend that on community transport? Is there not a balance? That freeze, might be welcome, but at the same time, part of me wonders what that £3.70 could have done if it wasn't in my hand buying Freddos, and instead may have been used to have a community transport bus that was getting people out of Deptford and into Pershore and going and enjoying a wonderful meal instead. And so that might be your approach, but it's certainly not mine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that summing up. And that brings the debate to a close, and that therefore brings the meeting to a close. I don't believe we have any chocolate frogs waiting for us in the committee room, but there are pork pies, sausage rolls, sandwiches. So meeting is now closed, and you're all welcome to come